Hey guys, how's it going? Got a neighbor of mine who I kind of keep on, my neighbor's stuff. I keep an eye on their equipment and help keep their stuff going, and this is another one that's no different. And he had a problem with it. Basically saying he was using it and then it wouldn't just start anymore. That's kind of all the information I got from it. Sometimes it's kind of hard to, the information you get is kind of iffy. So, very first thing I did is I hopped on it and turned the key, and it sounded like the battery was 3/4 dead. It was just kind of, clicking a little bit and not much happening. So he said, when I went to go pick it up, his son said he went and put a new battery in it, and it's still not running. So it's either he put a new battery in it and then cranked it down to 0, and it wouldn't start, and that's the issue. It's running the battery down. Or my other thought is it's not charging, and it's running the battery down. I think it says electric PTO. Yeah, it's got electric PTO, so that would drain the power pretty good when you're cutting the grass, and just run the battery down that way. So it's gonna be one of the two. I just came home, dropped it off my truck, and threw it on a battery charger, let the battery come back up, and we'll look into that for a minute. And I know we all, everybody likes to see small engine stuff, and I usually like to do a bunch that's something that can make a 25-minute video. But that's probably not going to be the case with these. I got another piece of equipment, which is my DR fueled and brush mower from the cabin, and it looks like crap because I try to make it look like crap on purpose, because everything at the cabin that has any value to it seems to walk away. So I try to leave this thing under the cabin, and it looks like it's just never ran in the last 20 to 30 years. But it actually does a very good job at what it's supposed to do, and that job is cutting the grass, hay, straw, weeds, and all the stuff that grows over at the cabin. And it's probably like one of the very first styles of them that they have. The new ones have pneumatic tires and everything on them. But this one's quite good. It's a little on the rigged side as far as having to go start it, turn the fuel on, turn the fuel off. But I've been dealing with that. The choke doesn't have a lever. You got to kind of hold the choke on and give it a yank a bunch of times. Finally it starts, and then you can let the choke off and operate it. The fuel pump leaks, so I turn the fuel on and off on the fuel tank when it's not in use, and try to minimize that as much as possible. And the latest thing that happened to it, it was being stored there, and some sucker decided to eat my gas tank and chomped a hole through it. So I had to kind of come home and have some maintenance done on it anyway. The belts were shot. They're starting to get to the point where they're slipping. But the fact that the fuel tank now has a hole in it, I kind of need to kind of go address that. So I went to the auto parts store, picked up some new belts for it. The part numbers are still visible on the ones that were there, and these kind of wear on an angle. If you look at it, the way it tracks, it's not coming straight off that pulley, it's going on a sharp angle, and it has a tendency to chew the sides of the belt. And what happens is the belt doesn't stretch, it just gets, the V gets skinnier and it fits further into the groove, which makes it well, for intents and purposes, seem longer. Like I think right now it's actually, so that was in gear, and that's how loose the belt is. To take it out of gear, it's got a lever like this, pulls the whole assembly back, and then it flops. So we're gonna get on both of these. We're probably gonna go outside, and I'm gonna go see if this one will crank for us first. Actually, we might as well do it with non-stop. How's that? We'll just see if it cranks. And if it cranks, it starts. And we'll go all the way up to choke. And so more than likely that's what's going on. It's probably not charging. So I'm gonna go and we'll take a meter. Just want to make sure the gauge is hooked up, nothing's knocked off of it. and we'll see what's happening. Right now I'm just quickly looking at all the wiring, make sure there's nothing unplugged. For that system. And then we gotta figure out why. But what I'm gonna do first is I'm not gonna trust that gauge. I'm gonna go and fire it up. I'm gonna put a meter on it and see if we get a difference between what the standing voltage is, which is probably gonna be right around 13 volts right now. That's been on the charger. And then after we fire it up, we'll see if the meter jumps up to about 13.5, 14, something like that. I'm gonna go get the gauge, the meter rather, and I'll be right back. Yeah, so the resting voltage is 12.5 volts. Let's fire it back up. So it looks like it's charging. Yeah, I do see is why I have a negative there. Either I got the terminals on the wrong one. Yeah, I just have them backwards. But so it is charging. It's putting out the correct voltage. We got to figure out why the battery's kind of going dead on it. The thing is that I could think of is that he left the key in the on position, or something is draining. Yeah, that our negative went away. At 12.5 volts. Just for shits and giggles, we'll do it one more time. I just wanted to put the load of the electric PTO on. I wanted to see if it dropped off, and it did not. So pretty much that gauge is just not working. Sometimes that stuff can fool you. That's why you always got to check, you know. You start chasing stuff that you don't know what's going on. So I'm gonna go and check for a drain and see if it's just kind of sitting and going dead due to some kind of parasitic drain that's on it. Maybe the power still stays to the fuel cutoff or something like that. And how we're going to go about doing that is we're going to go and take one of the terminals off, and we're going to put a test light between it. If the light lights up, then there was a drain on it. I'll show you what I mean in a minute. Okay, so what I did was I just disconnected one of the two battery terminals. Doesn't matter if it's positive or the negative, doesn't make any difference. You see the test light is just kind of stuck under the bolt there. If I go to the hot side, the light lights up. Now if I go to this terminal and that lights up at all, that means there's a parasitic drain or something staying on and drawing power. And that could work for your car, anything with a battery actually, if you're wondering why a battery's going dead when it's sitting. Now when I turn the key on, it actually should light up. There it goes. And that light lighting up is going to be what I just talked about, the solenoid for the fuel float bowl turning on and off. So it seems like it's working correctly. Nothing's draining when the key's in the off position. I surmise what happened was when it was parked, either it just ran out of gas and it didn't turn the key off, it didn't turn the key all the way off when he went to go park it in some fashion, and that drained it, just drained the battery down. He went to go start it the next time and it was dead. So I don't really think there's any kind of issue with it, but what I will do is probably cut my grass with it for 15-20 minutes, see what happens, and just make sure. I also noticed that there is nothing holding the battery down, so that's not a good sign. So we have to try to come up with something to secure that so that the battery doesn't flop over and land on the fan and decide to grind itself up. Let's go gas tank shopping. See what we can find. I think the motor that's on that is a Briggs, not a Tecumseh. So it's going to be a little bit differently shaped. Now there should be an area of just gas tanks. Remember where I do with them? Down there. We're going in. I don't see what we're looking for, but I wonder if that metal one would fit the bill. And solve our little rodent problem. Looks clean. Yeah, so I don't have the right one anyway. I just don't think so. I'm going to take another little look for a second. But if not, we're going to try to make that one fit. As I fall over and crash everything. We'll just make sure we don't have a motor with that same setup on it. I don't recall one. I know there's a box in that far corner. See if we can use you guys a look. Go look in the camera. What's that, a 5-horse? That's probably going to be too modern. I see we got one other steel one on this motor right here. That's a Briggs too. So I'm going to say it's either we're going to go with that one or that one. I think that one's it. Maybe the same tank. Now that I mention it. Now that you mention it. Yeah, it's pretty much looking like the exact same thing, I think. So, let's go flip that over and see what it's got on the bottom for a shutoff. That might suck. Yeah. It's threaded in, whatever it is. I might steal that. So what I'll do is we'll go take this tank that's already up there and we'll see how close that is, and if it's so, maybe we'll come back and we'll just steal this tank with the shutoff already on it. Well, it ain't the same, but it's physically roughly the same size. We'll probably get it in there. We'll have to make some brackets. Well, what's your thinking on whether that will thread out of the bottom of that tank and thread into the bottom of the new one, huh? That guy. That's what I'm wondering. Well, it's got to come off anyhow. So why don't we remove this one and then we'll see what we get. Out with the old. And let's see. That looks good. It's a lucky day. Kind of feels like it wants to go. Let's put it this way, it feels like it wants to go enough to make it go. So you can covering up the threads. I think I need to get that bracket out of my way behind it. Let me get that bracket out of the way so I can get a good swing on it, and we'll see if we can get that sucker started on there. Alright, so I was able to get that threaded in there. It looks like it's pretty good, and I blew into the tank and held my hand over the cap. I didn't put any fuel in it yet, but I don't think it's going to leak, and even if it does, we can tape it up. But fortunate thing about plastic, it kind of fills in its little voids on its own, you know. So the fuel pump leaks on this, or did leak at least on this, and they kind of crap out over time. They're notorious for the bodies of them kind of warp. This little pulse pump, and it's split down the center. And then over time, the center starts to open up, so as it pumps, it starts just, you know, dumping fuel right out of it. So I wasn't all that crazy about that setup. I was thinking about putting another one on there. You know, here's the height of the carb. My other thought is if instead of mounting the gas tank down low here, if we kick the gas tank up to right about here, where it's above the carb, it should have no issues in feeding it. Just get rid of the fuel pump altogether. So that's the bracket that came with it. I figure I could flip it over. It should be the same one way or the other. Just double check the gas cap. I think, yeah, we should be okay. Drill 2 holes. We'll get that mounted on that bracket, and then we'll take that third one right there, and I figure we'll make a bracket coming down to one of the other head bolts, and we'll try to catch that one so the whole thing's not vibrating out there. Terrible. So I'm going to get started on fabbing that up, and then we'll get that mocked up, and then we'll see if we can get rid of some of this conglomeration of fuel line that runs from there around to the fuel pump, from the fuel pump back over again to the pickup of the carburetor, and put new fuel line on it anyway. So if that works out for us well, then we can move forward with changing some belts, and we'll look at the rest of the machine, make sure it's ready to rock and roll another 10 years. So that worked out well. As I said, I just drilled out those 2 holes, used the original 2 mounts that has some standoffs on it, and I just came with a third bridge to the head bolt over here for what this bracket would have been the other way around, and perhaps somewhere on the lower end of the motor. So I should be more than sturdy enough, and ran the petcock and the fuel line down right through here and to the carburetor. I figure I'm going to run it like that, but I left everything else in place. The fuel pump is still on there, and the 2 old fuel lines, the one is tucked up right inside there, and I left the other one where it is. So I figure it's tucked in right here. So I figure I just, you know, it's not hurting anything. If I need it, I could still reconnect to that. It all depends on if I go, what would it be, down a really steep decline, that the fuel would be lower than the float ball, but that would have to be pretty steep. Yeah, it would have to be like that, and for a sustained period of time. So I think we'll be okay, but you never know. So let the sucker try to eat through that. Now we got to do some belt replacement, which I don't think is all that big of a deal. I like the way this works. It's so simple. The center of this is the drive. You see where it's driving the tires, and when all it has is a lever with a chain and a spring. If you notice, it grabs on the top and the bottom of the belt. It doesn't really wrap around it, but it catches, you know, what is about 1.5 inches of surface area and 1.5 inches of surface area on each one of them. And it's just enough with the gear reduction to make it go, yet if you jam it into something, it has the capacity to still slip. I should be able to just do that one by hand. That was rough, huh? You see where it's growing a tail a little bit. Now the other one, I got to get the bolt off of here so it can come up over this. And I think that guy has to come off. That's the only place it's held on by? Looks like it. So I'll get that guy off of there and get a little access to that one. And that was fairly simple. Basically that was just bolted. Those 2 were bolted together, but this has threads in it. So the bolt went through this one, threaded in here, and then they had a nut on the back side of it that just worked as a jam nut, and so you can adjust the tension that's on it. And the way these work, it slides right here. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. You see how the whole thing just slides on that center shaft, and that's what tensions and loosens the belt. Well, that should come right off of there. And bottom bearing is a little noisy. We're going to go with it though. Again, this thing really runs for about 10 minutes at a pop, and maybe 6 times a year. Yeah, she's got a little cabbage. And so if you look at the size of the blade, and you can flip the blade over too. You know, it doesn't have any lift to it. It's pretty much dead flat. I guess it don't look too bad. Just fine. See some cracking on that back side. Do you see where the welds are? Maybe we should grab them. I see what I'm talking about. You can see the daylight through that crack right there. I don't have any gas in the system right now, so just in case I did want to do any welding. So I'll grab the welder over here and we'll doctor a couple of them up a little bit, trying to help it along we shall. And hit it with a grease gun. So let me throw some belts on it. We'll grease the center of that, put it back together, and weld up this deck over here. So I threw that deck belt on there, and the way this kind of works, you get the handle comes down, and it kind of like hyper extends, and then just kind of holds itself tight. But you can see how the whole setup kind of slides. But the problem is the belt feels like it's a little on the too tight side. So I'm trying to figure out where the adjustment is. And I have a feeling what you do is you crank this guy loose right here, and this whole assembly can slide in a little further. You're just bringing this point a little bit closer to here. So I'm going to go loosen that up. I would figure that's where our brake is. And see if we can go tweak that. Is one on the other side? I don't feel one. That's about it. So let me go pop that loose, and we'll see if that goes and slides in a little bit. And if that's the case, then that will be our adjustment. Yeah, I saw it move. There it goes. So we lock forward. That's pretty. Let's go a little bit looser. Because you figure it's going to seat in pretty quick, but again, that adjustment doesn't look like it's very difficult to tweak. There we go. That should be pretty good. The other one was flopping, so at a later date, if I have to, I'll just crack that sucker loose and bump it back a little. And then into neutral. That's neutral. And when it has also in the cover has a little brake shoe on it. So as that arm slides forward and back, that runs right in and stalls out the pulley. I hope I put the camera over what we're looking at, right? So as that arm slides forward and back, this cover slides forward and back, and you set it up so that when you back it up, that's the brake right there, and it stops the blade from spinning. So I'll put that sucker back on, and we'll put the other belt on there. What do you say we buzz that crack back together? Hopefully you guys got your welding helmets on. Look through one eye, you'll be fine. You want to go for that one first? A little thin on the end there. That should work. This one looks. Get into this one. I think I went too low. I'm gonna run another bead on top. Good as old. Ugly but functional. I also know this is torn out right here, so I'm gonna go beat this back into submission. And I'll grab that one while I'm here. While the welder's set up, I'll take care of any welding issues. So if I shut you off, put my gloves on. Shaky cam, shaky cam. And last but not least is get some fluids out of them. change the oil on here. A lot of times you get those square plugs for the drain, and extensions make a good tool for removing that. And you put a wrench on the end of the extension, crack them loose. This one happens to be a 1/2 inch. Make sure you drop the plug in there. There. Let that goop out for a couple of minutes and refill it, and we'll dump some gas in her and see how it fires up. I'm definitely not going to clean it like I talked about, because we want to make it look like it's an abandoned piece of crap. It's got gas in it, and doesn't seem to be leaking. It normally takes about at least 5 or 6 pulls to go and get it going. So I fully suspect nothing's going to change as far as that's concerned. But let's give her. No, what it is, it's pumping gas out the old fuel line I left on. I was like, where's the gas coming from? The fuel pump still has a little bit of gas in it. That's purging. The only thing I see is the brake shoes wore out. You see those sparks shoot out? So that cover, when I return it all the way, the brake shoe's not touching the pulley. The metal on around the brake shoe's touching it. So it was backed off before further than this, so that's what I'm going to go do. I'm going to take the cover out of the way so that you can back it off far enough where it just doesn't hit the brake. I want to decrease it too. So I say we go out back and shove it in some weeds. Shall we? And that's what it says. Doesn't even slow it down. You heard me, it was hutting a little bit, so I just tweaked the carb air fuel mix just a little bit. But it does really make easy work of tall vegetation. And I think it can go up to about 3/4 inch saplings it'll knock down. So you know, they're pretty beefy. Again, a hell of a machine. It's perfect for the cabin too, and a little bit of maintenance in the backyard, I guess. Alright guys, well, I'm probably going to shut this one down here. Again, thanks everybody for watching, commenting, subscribing. If you like seeing me work on small engine stuff, if you would, just give me a thumbs up. Thanks. Later. Fail. Whoops.